Women's life in ancient Rome. The time span of the ancient Roman legacy is over 1,000 years, which means the traditions and circumstances varied a lot over time. Therefore, an ancient Roman woman of the first years of the Roman monarchy was in very different conditions than an ancient Roman woman in the imperial period. In fact, when Rome was a monarchy, since its foundation in 753 BC, until 509 BC, women were sitting in the corner in silence and they could not even join the banquets where men were participating. On the other hand, after the Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire, 27 BC, the conditions of the ancient Roman women are comparable to women today. Women in ancient Rome, what was their life like? During the Roman Empire, women could divorce, and you could find a lot of women that divorced multiple times. During the Republican period, marriage was always in favor of the husband, because the woman went from the jurisdiction of her father to the jurisdiction of her husband, as if she was a pet or an object. In this context, women could not divorce from their husbands, while he could repudiate her for any reason, even for the most insignificant one. This changed during the empire. In fact, marriage became sine manu, which meant that the jurisdiction of the woman remained with her family, and didn't transfer to her husband. This meant that women could then also repudiate their husbands, which resulted in women to be way more independent. Divorce and children in ancient Rome. Later on, divorce became socially accepted and it wasn't something to be ashamed of. Divorce in the Roman Empire was very easy. It was enough that either the husband or the wife pronounced a specific formula in the presence of a witness. In the meantime, the Senate also promulgated laws allowing women to independently manage their inheritance and their properties. Also important to note is that women, especially in the upper classes, deliberately refused to have kids. Why? Considering the multiple divorces they went through during their lives, kids could represent a problem. Also, childbirth was way more risky than today, and women were risking their lives every time they gave birth to a baby. This resulted in families adopting grown-ups, just for the sake of preserving their descent, without taking too many risks. When it came to sociality, women in the Roman Empire were informed, they read a lot and they were able to participate in any discussion on any topic. Therefore, we now have a picture of the women in the Roman Empire, free to divorce, free to manage their belongings, without the shame of being repudiated. The differences between women of upper and lower classes of the Roman society. Was the above applicable to all the women of the ancient Roman society? Not at all. The situation for women of the lower classes of society was very different. In fact, they still lived in the old concept of woman, which belonged to the monarchy and republican period. While women in the upper class discussed politics and read books, women of the lower classes lived a completely different life. Poor women could get married even at 10 years of age. In that case, the family made an agreement with the husband, forbidding sexual intercourse with the girl. Why were they getting married so early? This was due to the fact that child mortality was very high, about 20%. During the first year of life it reached 40%. Therefore, because so many of these kids were bound to die, it was considered wise to start making kids as soon as possible, and to make as many as possible. So imagine how much physical effort these women's bodies had to endure, one pregnancy after the other. Which is also why the upper class women did not want to have kids, to preserve their body shape. Did women in ancient Rome demonstrate for their rights? Yes, they did. To mention two of the most famous demonstrations for women's rights, we need to imagine the most important square of ancient Rome, the Roman Forum. This was the place where in the 2nd century BC, women for the first time took the streets, actually took the Forum for the abrogation of a law, the so-called Lex Oppia. This law forbade women the possession of jewelry and other status symbols, because they were seen as the cause of the decadence of society. Another demonstration took place in the Roman Forum in the 1st century, led by the first woman lawyer of ancient Rome, Hortensia. On this occasion, Hortensia stood for 1,400 women who were asked to pay the costs of the wars. One of Hortensia's main points was that they can't charge women if women have no word in war or political matters. She appealed to the principle of no taxation without representation. That's why she is remembered to be way ahead of her times. Unfortunately, this demonstration only partially succeeded. Eventually, only 400 out of 1,400, less than a third, women had to contribute economically. However, since this episode, the Senate banned the legal profession for women.